Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bat, and carrying on with what I started earlier today, I'm going to be looking at another piece of media from Marvel's violent, brutal, but historic and amazing franchise, The Punisher. Now, as much as Marvel wants to pretend like this doesn't exist or, push it away, I'm not going to do that. I'm dragging this to the light and I'm putting it front and center because I think this is the best thing to ever come out of Marvel's company. I mean, not to knock everything they put out because there's some good Weapon X comics out there. There's some good Daredevil ones, some good Elektra ones. Marvel's where pretty much everyone dies or has an alternate version of how they got their powers is really grim and amazing. And it's even funnier too. They put out a Toxic Avenger comic line back in the day. So at some point, believe it or not, Marvel was really cool and they were giving people what they wanted. And this game is proof of that. Like, this game, they don't make shit like this anymore, and I don't think they would have the balls to make something like this anymore. This game almost rivaled Manhunt with how violent and fucked up it was. And of course, it's The Punisher from 2005. Now, the early 2000s was fucking wild. We had some crazy games come out. We had stuff like Shell Shock Nom 67, The Punisher, The Thing, 50 Cent, Bulletproof, Grand Theft Auto, like really crazy shit, like Silent Hill, Manhunt, like I was talking about earlier, which was essentially a serial killer simulator, and The Punisher, which couldn't be more different, but also really brutal in the sense that it was a vigilante ass-kicking simulator. Both those games almost got the adults only rating because of how violent they were, the depiction of torture. And it's funny because I played this game when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I said earlier in the video, my dad and me were huge Punisher fans when I was a kid, so he actually got me this game at a pawn shop under the condition that I don't let my mom find out about it, which was a fair enough trade, but of course she found out about it at some point. Had this on PS2 and it disappeared. She fucking found out about how violent it was. I can't remember if she walked by and saw something she didn't like or heard something that made her see something, but point is, she came into a room and dudes were fucking cooking from a flamethrower and getting grenades shoved in their mouths and their heads were exploding, and she was not having it. Disappeared forever. That PS2 game is long fucking gone, but I was pretty smart. I went to a secondhand store with some pocket change and I bought another copy for Xbox because at this time, I believe the Xbox 360 was coming out. My neighbor had just thrown out his original Xbox, which was fucking stupid because, like, if the whole thing's working, why are you going to throw it out just because a new system's there? You know what I mean? I don't even think he was aware that certain games were backwards compatible because, some of the games were there too. But anyway, point is, I bought an Xbox version of this game for like $4, brought it home, and then managed to beat the game. And, it was difficult. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, for a game that can be kind of repetitive at times or like kind of clinical, like, it gets hard when it needs to be. And it is a fun game. Like, it's not without its flaws. Like, it is a third-person shooter action adventure game, but sometimes, like, I remember one time specifically I got really baked and I noticed how repetitive the game was because I've been playing this for well over a decade, but one time I got really fried and I was like sitting there and I noticed like almost every room layout is identical and it's always the same number of guys and you're just on to the next room, kill them, on to the next room, kill them. There's a couple interesting, interrogations or light up kill sequences, but other than that, it's pretty much rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Sometimes you meet a guy that helps you out, but rinse, repeat. And I was like, is this a bad game? But no, it's not a bad game. And the reason why is because the amount of detail and fan service that got put into it is fucking nuts. Like, first of all, I don't think Marvel would ever make a game this violent ever again. I don't think a AAA studio would make a game this violent ever again because this is a cross between Volition, Marvel, and THQ. Rest in peace, THQ. But you don't see this level of brutality in a AAA game anymore. For Christ's sakes, like in Call of Duty World at War, if you stepped on a fucking bouncing Betty, your legs got blown clean the fuck off, or like certain headshots would make your head explode. That shit doesn't even happen anymore, man. Like, it's only like the indie games and shit that are really retaining that brutality. Like, this was a big fucking deal back in the day. And also, like, Garth Ennis co-wrote this, and at the time, Garth Ennis was like peak at writing with the Punisher. Like, the Max series was coming out. this game, like, it, it's crazy because it's not really a sequel, but it kind of is. It's like a Frankenstein. It's got like elements of the Welcome Back Frank arc from 2000 and 2001. It's got elements of the Max series with the flashbacks and even some of the old comic books and stuff. And like I said, like movie tie-ins, because Thomas Jane came back to voice the Punisher. It's just a lot of crazy stuff, and it sounds like a mess and it sounds like a lot, but for some reason it all just works. It all clicks really well. The controls are really easy. You can just pick this game up and blast away. Like, it doesn't take, like, I don't want to sound like a dick, it doesn't really take skill to play this game. It's kind of just aim and shoot, aim and shoot. Like, if you like the Punisher and if you like just arcade style like murder sim games, this is going to be right up your alley. It's fun to kill a few hours. Looking into the story, it is pretty cool. It is really interesting, but it kind of hurts your head when you try to work out the kinks, because the movie takes place in Tampa. This place takes place in New York. He's not a Vietnam vet in the movie. He's a Vietnam vet in the game. Joan and Spacker Dave are in this, but they look a lot like the comic book version. However, the apartment looks a lot like the Tampa apartment. And even though Howard Saint's dead and John Saint is presumably dead, he somehow turned into Jigsaw. Not Jigsaw from Saw, but you guys who know the Punisher know who the fuck I'm talking about. But yeah, apparently Howard Saint is Jigsaw now. So I don't know how all this works out, but it works out. And I'll briefly cover the plot, but I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's fucking insane. Essentially, like, it starts with this nightclub being under attack by the Punisher, and it's a Yakuza run club. He clears the fucking room out and then gets arrested by police, to which he's brought to Rikers Island. And the rest of the game is like an interrogation between Martin Soap and Molly von Richthofen, two officers that show up in the Welcome Back Frank arc. And throughout the course of the game, every level is a flashback to what led Frank, or the Punisher, to where he's at currently. It's funny, you get a cameo from Matt Murdock, Daredevil, as his lawyer, but he briefly is there and he gets told to fuck off pretty quickly, which is really funny. And you go from like killing crackheads to like, Nucci's. If you've read Welcome Back Frank, they're the main mafia family, and then from them it's Russians, and then from Russians it's the Yakuza, and then you find out it's Jigsaw, and in between there you get some boss fights with like Bushwhacker and Bullseye and fucking Kingpin. It is crazy. There's one level where you go to Stark Industries and the Yakuza tries to take over because Jigsaw wants to get an Iron Man suit before the last fight with you. And Iron Man shows up for one brief moment and they reference his drinking problem. He blows up a helicopter and dips. Black Widow shows up at one point and helps you kill some motherfuckers. Nick Fury also shows up. Like, that asshole General Kreedkoff from the comics is there. Ma Nucci's there. You get to like pretty much kill some of Punisher's biggest enemies and some of Daredevil's ones, and it's pretty fucking cool. Like I was saying, the game's difficulty can spike rather high too. I remember a couple levels that stand out to me that almost give me like flashbacks, or like Grand Nixon Island is one. The fucking Yakuza Tower is another one, and Rikers Island is a fun one, but it can be pretty unforgiving, especially toward the end, because all the Yakuza guys that come out are all in these like armor fucking suits that you got to sink headshots or else you're pretty much fucked the whole time. But another cool thing about this game is this came out in the time when like everything was put on one disc. Like, if you did like good shit and did good on the challenges, the game rewarded you unlocked stuff. Like in this game, you don't really get like unlockable levels like in Manhunt. If you did really good on certain scenes, they gave you whole levels that expanded the game. This kind of just does some different shit. Like, you get upgrades for your weapons and your stats, which can be pretty cool, especially for like your PTSD Punisher mode, where if you hit like the Y button, everything goes black and white. You don't have guns, you just have two knives, and you do like brutal executions where like one of them is if you punch a dude in the face, their head will fucking explode. You can impale them with like two knives and throw them across a room. Like, it is crazy. So you can upgrade that. You can make your accuracy better. Then you can also like put shit on the guns. Like, one will put grenade launchers on guns where grenade launchers are applicable. Like an M16 will get one, and it will make it look fucking pretty cool. But some of them are pretty dumb, like the silencer ones. I made the mistake of putting those on my first run through, and you can't take them off. So like, you got these guns that have silencers, which, kind of look cool a couple times, but when you want to get rid of them, or when you realize that silencers actually don't do fuck all in this game, you kind of just want to get rid of them. You can't. It's pretty stupid, but all I say to that is just avoid getting silencers. But if you get like gold on some of these missions, like gold medals, or if you do some of the challenge modes, you unlock comic book covers, which are really cool because you can use this as a checklist to take out which comics you need and stuff. Like, it goes over the original run, it goes over like the special issues, it goes over War Journal, Warzone, Final Days, some of the Garth Ennis run, like a lot of really cool shit covering so many different eras. There's like a gallery where you can look at all the flashbacks you unlock because, like I mentioned earlier, there's an interrogation system in this game that almost got it the adults only rating, where you can like put a drill press over a guy's eye or hang a guy's head over like a fucking chrome plating thing. You can hang a guy off a roof by his ankle or slam a window into a dude's chest. And there's a breaking point. So if you keep the meter within this breaking point and the person breaks, they'll give you useful information. Sometimes it will be like a key to open a door, or like, sometimes they'll be like, let me live and I can take you to the other room and the guys won't shoot you. And sometimes people won't shoot you temporarily. But sometimes they'll say a phrase and this will trigger a flashback. And this is why I said I think the Max series kind of applies to this game also, like in this Punisher soup of fan service, because a lot of the comic frames, especially the Vietnam or the war flashbacks, are straight out of the Max line, which is pretty fucking cool, but also really disturbing, especially when you're a kid playing this and you're like seeing images flash up of like dead children and shit. Like, this game was fucking brutal, man. Like, but still really fun. There's also these gold splashes on the ground that are special kills. Like, I remember one of them on the island is you can grab a guy and throw him to a snake and he'll get absolutely devoured. You can throw some dude in front of like a fucking jet engine and the jet will fucking fry him. Like, you can also put a dude in with like electric eels. And some of these interrogations, what will happen is there's like a point system. So you got to kill people to rack up points and keep chaining it together to get a high score. Points will also unlock shit, yada, yada, yada. But basically, if you kill someone in an interrogation, because it goes black and white when they die, because that was a way to censor it so the game didn't get an A rating, you lose points. So the game doesn't reward you for killing them in an interrogation, which can be kind of frustrating because certain scenes, like for Damage, for example, the crack dealer you kill in the beginning of the game, in the cutscene after he dies, it shows his body on the pavement all cracked up and twisted, like you dropped him off the roof. But the game will not reward you and try to incentivize you to, like, after you interrogate him, to take him off and then kill him the normal way to get more points. So I just say fuck it with certain things, and I just let the environment kill them and do it how the cutscene would do it. But it's kind of annoying that, like, I don't know, it's annoying with movies and video games when people just show up and they start censoring shit and like fucking with the formula and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, you put a black and white filter on it, but like it's still as brutal. Like, oh, it's in black and white. Like, I don't know, man. I just think it's stupid and pointless. Like, censorship is really fucking lame, and this is just another example of it. I mean, at least the game wasn't cut, and at least I don't live in Europe, because I heard the cuts go even further with like cameras zooming out and shit like that. It's just fucking weak, man. But yeah, like, this game is fun. It like I said though, it can be very repetitive. Like, a lot of the levels feel like the same. Some of them even get brought back again, like Pier 74, fuck's sakes, that level gets brought back twice. It's pretty cool though. Other than that, I highly recommend this to anyone who's a fan of the Punisher, anyone who's a fan of controversial games or shooter games, or, if you're not like a hardcore gamer and you want something where you can just like kind of jump in at leisure and play, this is definitely something that like you should check out. I mentioned earlier I was lucky and I got this for $4 on Xbox. I was actually fucking around and looking how much this is going for online a few minutes ago, and it's telling me on Amazon an Xbox copy of this game is going for $141, which is fucking insane. Now I know I'm never selling this, but if you guys can find a copy for less than that, I highly recommend you pick it up and check it out. Again, it's not the greatest thing ever made. It's just it's like a brain cell stomper, you know what I mean? It's like, if you want some cool references here and there, boom, check it out. But other than that, it's nothing too fucking deep. It's a shooter game. It's got some good boss fights that will definitely scare the shit out of you. I remember the Russian. That guy terrified me, especially on the Grand Nixon Island level, when you think you kill him and then he lights on fire and he starts going after you again, and it's just fucked, man. Like, that is I got real fucking trauma with that shit. But again, super fun game. Highly recommend. If you guys love your fucking games violent, this game does not disappoint. If I were to rate this on a scale, I'm not great with the video game or the comic book ratings, because as much as I enjoy those things, I'm not an expert on this shit, so I don't want to like be wrong with my rating, but as someone who's played this for over 10 years and has put like at least a couple hundred hours into it, I'm going to say, without bias, like as much as I want to like be honest with it, I'm probably going to give this about a 7.5 because it kind of just feels like the same thing over and over again from level to level. Like if this didn't have a really well written Punisher story attached to it, like if Garth Ennis wasn't attached to this and, Marvel wasn't on their shit with making this a good game, it could have just been a generic shooter and it would have been forgotten. But I think it's all the extras and the fan service that truly make this an amazing adaptation. A lot of movie tie-ins and comic book tie-ins are shit. And this is one of the ones where it's like, yeah, it's not the greatest fucking video game ever and it's not like a game changer, but it was still really good for what it was. And at the end of the day, that's sometimes all a game needs to be. It doesn't need to fucking reinvent the wheel or anything. It just needs to be a fun game to kill a couple hours or, to enjoy with your friends. And this game is that. So, it did what it did, but the repetitive nature of it does knock it back a few points because it's just kind of shitty, but what can you really do? You know what I mean? This game was made in 2005 and it was only made for so much money, so I can't really fault it for that, but definitely a 7.5. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to see more really violent video game reviews, drop a comment, and if I got it, I'll cover it. Peace.